Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Strip Search, the comic strip podcast. I'm Pete Chianca, here with my partner, as always, Dave London. Hiya, Dave.
Hey, Pete.
Very exciting. We have not one guest today, but two. We're going to squeeze two guests into the show tonight.
I thought you were going to go with one of those LeBron James things. Not one, not two, not three.
Yeah, we'll get there. We're not quite there yet, but soon. So we want to dive into that as quickly as possible. I know people enjoy our pre-interview banter, and I hate to cut it short and disappoint people, but we really want to get to these guys. Cagen Luse, who is going to talk to us about the Comics and Color Festival in Boston, and Pat Sandy of Next Door Neighbors, who is going to talk about his new book, Collecting His Strips. So, but before we do get to them, one very important thing I did want to ask you about, Dave, is an event where you and I believe I will be talking about comics and pet peeves and sharing some cartooning endeavors next month, right?
It is. So, just to make sure I get it right, it's Saturday, May 21st from 10 to 5 p.m. at the Everett Arena in Concord, New Hampshire. So anyone who's in New Hampshire, near New Hampshire, wants to go to New Hampshire, it's called Kids Con New England. This is the 7th year. It is a fantastic event with all kinds of artists, vendors, and entertainment, and it's geared towards kids of all ages. And so we'll be there representing Pet Peeves, and there'll be other promoters and cartoonists and fun folks. And so I encourage people to look at it, to come if you can. The information on their website is KidsConNE. That's KidsConne.com.
Yes, and we'll have a link to that on our website, petpeevescomic.com. We're looking forward to getting out into the world. Haven't done much of that in the last couple of years, but finally, in the last few months, we've been able to at least think about it. So that'll be fun to get out and meet the folks out there. And speaking of getting out, also wanted to mention, Dave and I are preparing a little road show that we're going to take out to schools and libraries, talking about how to be a cartoonist and create your own comic strip and what it takes to create engaging characters, which hopefully we've done in our own work. Don't tell us if you don't think so. So if that's something you might be interested in, if you happen to run programs for a school or a library, or just want us to come to an organization in your area of Massachusetts or elsewhere in New England, contact us through our website, petpeevescomic.com, and we'd love to talk to you more about it.
Yeah, or if you're a parent with a kid and you want to recommend us to your local library or bookstore, certainly that would be helpful as well.
Excellent. All right, I think that covers it. And we are expecting our first guest any second now. So we're going to take a very quick break. And in 30 seconds or so, we will be back with Cagen Luse. Stick around, everybody. Hey everyone, welcome back to Strip Search, the comic strip podcast. We are here with our first of two guests for the day. Cagen Luse is an illustrator and entrepreneur. He's the author of the Racially Ambiguous Guidebook and creator of Lunchtime Comics, which is a hilarious strip about a mixed race family that's run online and in the all-weekly Dig Boston. If you live in or around Boston, you know that publication. His business, 950 Design, offers t-shirts, art prints, buttons, and more featuring his artwork. And he's a member of Comics and Color, which is an organization that promotes comics by and about people of color in Boston, and that is now a festival in addition to being an organization. And he's an alum of Strip Search. He was here last year to talk about Comics and Color, and this is his second time back with us. So welcome back, Cagen.
It's good to be back. Thank you.
The year went by pretty fast. I feel like you were just in to talk about the last Comics and Color.
I know, it did go by fast, didn't it?
So for the people who may have missed the last installment, could you tell us a little bit about what Comics and Color is, the organization, the event, and what last year's event was like? Because it wasn't 100% in person, as I recall.
No, it was not. So Comics and Color is about promoting artists of color in comics. We've been going since about 2018. It started out as just kind of a meetup at a local library, and we would bring in comics and just talk about them. And then started kind of expanding it to bringing in artists and doing workshops and, trying to kind of get younger people into comics and have more people of color telling their stories through comics. and it's been pretty successful. And we were able to do a festival last year. Of course, 2020 was when our first festival was supposed to be. Of course, the festival had never happened, but we were able to put it together last year, and we ended up doing a hybrid festival where we did 2 days of online panels, which was really great. And then we did an outdoor artist alley, essentially, or we called it a marketplace, but it was an artist alley at Roxbury Community College in the parking lot. And it was a lot of fun. We lucked out with an incredibly nice day in April, and it was a bit windy, but we had a lot, probably 300 or 400 people come out. We had about 30 vendors, and it was super fun. And this year we're going to be doing it all indoors. Your traditional con at the Reggie Lewis Center, and we've got some great special guests, some great artists. It's going to be a really good time.
Awesome.
So tell us about some of the vendors that will be there, some of the artists, where people might have seen them, should know them from, and what to look out for.
All right, I'll start by talking about our special guests. Our kind of big ticket guy is Rob Armstrong, who does the comic strip Jumpstart. He's been doing it for 30 years. It's nationally syndicated, the most printed, most published Black comic in the world. So we're really excited. We're going to be doing kind of like a one-on-one thing with him. We have Ben Passmore, who is an incredibly talented indie comics guy. He does kind of more politically oriented stuff. He has a publication called Sports is Hell, which has been really popular, published on the Nib. We're also got Ronald Wimberly coming, who does one of my favorite comics. Well, I guess it's a graphic novel called Prince of Cats, kind of a Shakespeare story. He also publishes the Lab comic series, which is kind of like a newspaper of alternative, kind of politically oriented comics that he publishes. And then we have Joel Christian Gill coming back, who is a local guy. He's a professor, I believe he's at Mass Art. And he, has published, he does like history comics about different Black history folks. He's also recently published Fights, which is a memory, why am I confusing this? It's a memoir, sorry, a memoir of his life told through fights that he had coming up as a kid. And then we have a lot of great local folks coming. Ingrid Pierre is coming, Toshiyama, Barrington Edwards, my partner, is gonna be there. Let's see, who else is coming? Stephanie Yee, we just found out, is coming. Dave Ortega, and some folks from outside of town. Demetrius Bullock, who's from Delaware, who was there last year. Javier Cruz Winnick, who's from New York, is coming, and a bunch of other people. I don't want to just start naming people, but at comicsincolor.org, you can go and see the complete list of artists and exhibitors who are going to be there.
That's a great lineup, and it's a nice. It sounds like it's a nice mix of out of town folks, and and I think people don't realize the sort of what a vibrant comics and artist community Boston has.
You really do.
And I guess that's probably one of the reasons that you've been able to get this off the ground, I imagine, is the local support in the neighborhoods and just in town.
Yeah, and I mean, Boston Comic Arts Foundation has been doing great work with their Mass Independent Comic Expo, kind of, bringing together indie comic folks for years. So we kind of use that model to put this together.
Yeah, we were at the last one, the last mice thing that they did a similar thing where they got everybody together at a parking lot.
That's right. Yes.
and
a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a great way, for people to get together. And it's not just, it's great for artists, but it's not just for artists. I mean, it's for people who just enjoy comics, just want a day out, with around creative people. I just think it's important, for the neighborhoods, in any city, to be able to offer that kind of thing.
Yeah, me too.
What in terms of cartoonists and color, comics in color in particular, Why do you think it's important to have an event that focuses on cartoonists of color and their stories in particular?
Well, I think that, artists of color are underrepresented in the comics community. I recently went to a con, and it was a wonderful one, out in Boxborough, the Northeast Comics Con. And, it was great, and they were very welcoming. But as I walked around, it just cemented to me the reason why we need an event like this. It was, there was not very much representation of people of color out there. And, it's not their fault. It's just, it is what it is. But I think that we need a space that, we can come and share our stories and be appreciated. And so that's what we're trying to build. And also, develop more young artists of color to, go into the field. They have to see themselves represented to know that their stories are valid and, worth telling.
Yeah, you don't get much whiter than Boxborough.
No, you don't.
I'm sure it's a lovely event. But
no, it was nice. It was nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about your work, Cagen. Let's talk about Lunchtime Comics. And we know that you had a lot of pandemic material, 2.5 years, I suppose, worth of pandemic material, unfortunately. And you collected that into a collection called The New Normal. So are you going back away from pandemic humor and going back to sort of regular life humor, or are you still incorporating pandemic humor into your work?
Well, my work is very much based on my life. So as the pandemic is still happening, there can be more pandemic stuff that will appear in my work. I'm not, I haven't continued the New Normal series, directly talking about the pandemic, but the pandemic still affects us, right? We still have to wear a mask. There's still COVID concerns. So I think it's still a part of our life. So it's still going to be part of my comic. Yeah, I'm gonna keep exploring it as we still have to deal with it.
That's basically what we found out. It's funny, we do our comic strip Pet Peeves, and we sort of finished off the year last year with sort of an end of pandemic kind of theme, and we actually put together a book of our comics, the last couple of years of comics, called More Social Than Distant, that concentrated on the pandemic, thinking it was over, and
Right.
then boom, we come back in January and it wasn't quite over. So we've continued, it's not as prevalent, but like you said, it's until very recently anyway, it was still part of everyday life. And there was, it's a serious subject, but it also is ridiculous in many ways, and that makes it fodder for for a comic.
Right. You can't help but deal with it because it was just such a crazy change in our lives and in society for that period of time. And it's still affecting things for sure.
Although in a way, I mean, sort of the silver lining, something like this, we're doing a Zoom podcast. Our podcast historically was, audio. It was audio only. It was radio. And then when we got into the pandemic and everybody became familiar with Zoom, we actually just, I forget exactly how the trigger came, but we started doing a Zoom podcast. And now I think it works great because now we can have the visual, we can see the people that we're talking to, we can see our guests, and I think it brings an added element to at least this environment.
Well, interestingly enough, like dealing with last year's festival and this year's festival, it was so much easier to put together panels when all you're asking someone to do is, turn on their computer for an hour and have a conversation. Whereas like getting people to actually come and be in person and part of a panel is a lot more coordination. So
Right.
there definitely is some silver linings to, the how it broke down, the communication thing that we had kind of going.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a big part going forward of events like like the one you're talking about. Even though this year's is fully in person, I could see hybrid models coming. Because just like they're becoming part of work, becoming part of all sorts of meetings and conventions. And I think corporations will realize they don't necessarily need to fly people all over the country every time they want to get together and talk about the future of their particular industry. Fuel's kind of expensive right now. Might be better to throw them on the computer. But I'm just happy that people will have the opportunity this year to see those people in person and meet them. And because there is something, like you said, about the representation and just the opportunity for young people in particular to be able to talk to people who do this face to face and, get the sense of, hey, maybe this is something I could do.
Absolutely. And I felt that it was important this year, even, moving forward with it in the uncertainty of the way that things are, I mean, you could get another variant and things could change, but the experience of going to a con is being in the space with those people and be able to have these face-to-face interactions and meet people and see their physical work. I think is invaluable as a comic artist and as a comic enthusiast.
Yeah, I think it's important for creative people to have that outlet, from the music is the same way. That's even more of an extreme because people, obviously performing is a huge part of what a musician does, and they were deprived of that for this whole time. So you're seeing concerts coming back with a vengeance, but any sort of creative endeavor like this, I think that opportunity to have them get together in person is cool. And it's sort of one of these things where you don't know what you got till it's gone. I don't think we necessarily realized how important that was until we couldn't do it anymore.
I thought you were going to break into song there for a sec, Pete.
I do quote song lyrics quite a bit, but you won't hear me singing here. That's another podcast altogether. Are you still doing anything with Dig Boston? I know their sort of status was up in the air, but they are still, I do still see them posting stories and keeping up with what's going on in Boston online. Are you still involved with your work there?
Yeah, I'm they don't publish me as much anymore just because they changed kind of the format of the paper, so my comic didn't fit quite as well. But I still, they sponsor the festival this year. I still do some illustration work for them here and there, and I'm working on doing a comic that get in there. I might have to start something other. I've started doing like little political comics here and there too, trying to fit into the space there. I've expanded my comics a little bit. So now I do some political comics, and I also do have another comic series that I've been working on called The Market, besides my main lunchtime comic series.
And what's that one about?
The Market is a character is a young millennial guy who can't find a job, and so he's kind of out in the market looking for work, and very cynical young man who just, life kind of sucks for. So that's kind of the storyline behind it. It's much more simple, black and white line art. I wanted to do something that was kind of a complete departure from the style of lunchtime comics, just to kind of expand my repertoire a bit. So I've been having fun with it. I feel like I can really, when you do comics that are based on your own life, you don't want to do anything that's too kind of out there, because then people start thinking that's you, right? Even though, it's based on my life, it's not actually me. I'm not actually this person in the comic. But so now to do a character that is completely separated from me, I can kind of have more fun and poke at different subjects that I wouldn't particularly poke that was, when I'm portraying myself. Oops.
And sadly, I think you will find an audience for that character, because it sounds like a situation that a lot of people are in right now.
Yeah, I think I had some fun with it. It was in the Boston Compass newspaper, which is like a kind of an indie arts paper. And I put it up on Webtoon so people can check it out if they'd like it there.
Excellent. As far as the political stuff, I don't know if that's going to go. There's not much going on politically in the country right now.
So boring. Yeah, my political comic, I wanted to do, I really like to go different from what I did before. So this one is called Welcome to Boston. It's kind of, paw, because it's all anthropomorphic animals, just kind of making commentary on Boston politics and, the country's politics. And I did that because, again, separation, right? If a rabbit that's standing like a person is saying things about the mayor or something, then it's not particularly coming out of my mouth, and gives me a little bit more distance away from it.
Yes, but you don't have to tell us. I have populated our entire strip with dogs, chickens, snakes.
I know you know.
Everything but humans. Hey, so yeah, so what are some of the Boston issues you've been tackling there? The mayor obviously has run into a few controversies in her short time in office, or at least challenges from various folks.
Well, I did some stuff on like vaccination mandates. I did some stuff on the election, the mass and cast situation. So I try to hit the stuff that's kind of happening around me.
Well, that's for those in Boston. That sounds like a must. I will definitely be taking a look at that.
All right.
So we do need to wrap up shortly, but I want to make sure we've covered everything that people need to know about comics in color. Where can people find out more information? What what do they need to know going in? Anything else that is on the Comics in Color agenda?
Well, you can find most everything on comicsincolor.org. You can find a list of the guests. We're still, hammering out the schedule, so that will be up soon with the panels and the workshops. But we're going to have some great things happening at the show. We're going to have like live art. My partner Barrington Edwards is going to be bringing in some graffiti artists and comic artists working together to create like live, large comic panels. So I'm really excited about that. We've got some panels about the radical history of comics. We're going to do a panel about the intersection of comics, graffiti, and hip hop. Roxbury Film Festival is going to be bringing some animated films that we're going to be screening. Spark the Artmobile, which is a great thing out of Mass Art, is going to be doing a whole track of comic related activities for kids during the day. So the whole family can come out and have a great time. You can reserve tickets. The link is on comicsincolor.com. And it's going to be great. So I hope everybody comes out on April 23rd and has a great time with us.
That's awesome. Well, we will also have links to all of that on our website, petpeevescomic.com. Go to our podcast page and you will be able to find that there. Cagen, thank you so much for coming out and telling us about this.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me on, and thanks for the work that you do.
Oh, it's certainly our pleasure. Everybody else, stay tuned because we have another guest coming on to Strip Search today. Pat Sandy of Next Door Neighbors will be with us in about 30 seconds. Hang in there. Hello, everyone. We are back from the break of Strip Search, the comic strip podcast. I'm Pete Chianca here, as mentioned earlier, with Dave London. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Pete.
Did you change your shirt during the break?
No.
Oh, it must be my imagination. If you're watching on video, you might notice that. But anyway, we are here with, as we mentioned earlier, two guests on this episode of Strip Search, which is very exciting, a rare occurrence. And even better, it's someone we know well and is a true friend of the show. I'm going to introduce him here. Pat Sandy is a longtime cartoonist and illustrator whose cartoons have appeared in newspapers, magazines, children's books, and of course on greeting cards for American Greetings, where he worked in a variety of roles over a 35-year career, including art director and program director. He teaches at the Cleveland Institute of Art. Yes, Cleveland has art. And most importantly for our purposes, he is the creator of the comic strip Next Door Neighbors, distributed by Andrews McMeel Syndicate and Go Comics since 2016. And now it's a book. So welcome back to Strip Search, Pat Sandy.
Indeed. Thank you for having me back, you guys. I appreciate it.
Oh, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
And and we have good reason to, as I mentioned. But before we get into the book, just for the few people maybe who haven't caught on yet, tell us a little bit about Next Door Neighbors. What's it all about?
It's a tough one. I to break it down, I would say that the main character, the protagonist, as it were, Norm Dewey, is what we like to call the neighborhood that guy. He's the guy. He's the neighbor, the one we've always all complained about, and the one we always gripe about, all distilled into one spindly little body. he's the beer drinker in the neighborhood. He's the terror of the neighbors. He's the guy, as I said on the book, he's the guy that mows at 10 p.m. and sets off the fireworks all day long on July 4th. And so we know this guy.
You do,
So-
but the funny thing, the thing I love about Norm, and I don't know how you've done it. This is your secret. That sounds obnoxious, but he's really actually very lovable.
Yeah, in a way, in a way, yes, he is. He kind of, there's a humanity there, and I think that might have been the original. The original idea really was, let's take a very unlikable character, and I'd been massaging the idea for a very long time before I ended up selling it, and to take a guy like that, again, who we all seem to know the archetype, in our lives and that type of thing, and find out what that side of the fence is all about. Because
Mhm.
I would never agree with Norm politically, not in a moment, and I would certainly probably not hang out with him to any extent, but one night might be interesting at Deke's bar.
Right, or for his Halloween or July 4th extravaganza.
Yeah, and those stories tend to, I've done enough of the party aspect to it to the point where the law is actually looking for him. So I have to kind of restrain myself on the parties a little bit. But again, he's a guy that I think has a what we might politely call devil may care attitude towards life. I could use coarser language, but I won't. So.
Yeah.
The I don't give a, so. But and we all have a little bit of that in us, I think.
I think, yeah, there's a certain little bit of Norm in all of us, which is what makes it a little.
I would agree. Some would probably get upset to hear that, but I think there is an element of that flippancy in most of us that we would just love to one day just to be Norm and call in sick and say, yeah, And so I think what's interesting though is what I've been able to do, because I've been at it for a while, is the mom character Vera really started to take off a little bit, and I was able to play with that a little bit more as well, and I will be in the future here. So some interesting stuff coming up.
How did you get the feedback to know that the mom was taking off?
Pardon again?
Well, you said the mom character was taking off. Did you get audience feedback?
Yeah, a lot of people. I've had enough people say, I've had some say, well, you ought to just bust her into another strip, and it's like, I don't need the more work, But I mean, I've had people say, why don't you break her into a strip? And I've actually thought about it, maybe doing, maybe taking a Sunday and centering on Vera or something like that. But she's a fun character to deal with, and with the cats and such. So, and there's a little bit of reality there. Again, I've said before on the show, she is very, very, very loosely based on my mom, simply on the cat issue. Mm-hmm. The rest of it, she kind of just became this whole other character. And I remember when I first brought her into the strip, it's been a long time. I brought her in the first 6 months of the strip, and she was a little more elegant in that time period, and then slowly devolved into this, whatever, the cigar chomping thing or cigarette smoking thing. So, but she took off a little bit. So.
Now, in terms of the book, so this is a long time coming, this book.
Yeah.
It's a while. How did this come together finally?
Well, it came together because I finally realized I needed to get some help on the prep. And I had somebody helping me out, John Cardinal, who was really, really good at book prep. And, he and I talked, I hooked up with him and had somebody finally shepherd the thing to the finish line, which is something I just don't do. I mean, I can work in some of those programs, but this was for me, a little bit overwhelming. So it always pays to get somebody who knows what they're doing, so, which is not me. So it took a while. And I also had to collate the strips, for a long time, I was hemming and hawing about whether it was going to be chronological. Like I would start this book from day one. I don't know. Did you guys do that? Did your first one, is it from day one?
We did, and I was wondering if that is what you had done, or it felt reading it like they were more highlights, but I wasn't.
There's more highlights, and I said for a while, and I was going to say it in the intro when I was putting this whole thing together, is that I felt right now I didn't want people to see the strip getting its legs, so to speak, because there's a lot of interesting experimentation going on in the early going on the strip, but it's fascinating. And maybe I'll get to that, but it's fascinating when I look at these early strips, the development that occurred, because it's been almost 6 years, right? So, I mean, after a while, wow, you could say, wow, I started there, but somehow I ended up over there, and it's just an interesting dynamic, I suppose. So.
Well, it's interesting. I suspect it's interesting if you have the same experience we did. Not only does the dynamic of the the characters change, but the look also in the first 6 months or so. It's just that's where the most change I found was.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's very the early any strip is really like this, but I think the early stuff is extremely proto and embryonic in a way. I mean, everything's kind of being felt out a little bit. And you don't have time, most of us have a perfectionist streak. I know I do. I'll sit there and fiddle with something till I just kill it, right? So, if a typical creative would sit there and screw with it until they think it's perfect, and that means it'll never see the light of day. So at some point with a comic strip, you have to just say, this is where I'm starting, this is how they look, and we'll just see how it goes in 6 months to a year to 2 years. It has to evolve.
Pete and I call that a deadline.
That's it. That's why, I was just telling students the other day, I mean, the most creative thing that can happen to you, and I'm not being a wise guy, is a deadline. It forces you to think quickly and just get the thing done. And another mantra, and I know we've all heard it, is done is better than perfect. You just got to get rid of it and do it,
Right. It's also better than not done.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, at a certain point, if you've self-imposed a deadline, meaning if you've decided it's going to be 5 days a week, 3 days a week, whatever it is, you kind of have to meet that and just do it,
No, so and I find that I mean Pete and I have created our deadline, and given that with the partnership, the writing and the drawing, I'm beholden to make sure I get it in on time.
Oh yeah, I mean it becomes sort of an internal feature for you where you just have to meet that deadline. It doesn't really matter, who sets it. It's just that's the deadline, and that's what you've agreed to give the work to your readers and stuff. So I try to meet it.
But back to the book, just to not stray too far from it, it's a really beautiful production. We would say Pete and I have talked about the high production value of it and the color aspect of it. Now, talk about a little bit about doing a book in color.
Well, the color, I was really fascinated by the Instagram look, the stuff that I put on Instagram, because I end up reform. It's a little bit different, more work and stuff, but I reformat it for Instagram because on Go Comics, it's a typical strip. So I like that square static format. And, I worried about it looking repetitive and all that, but I like the full color cartoony thing and the look of it. So I kind of just ran with it. And I got to say, the way it's being printed, it's pretty bright. It looks pretty good. It's standard paper stock. It's not, it's not gloss or anything, but it looks pretty vibrant, I think.
So did you have to recolor for book purposes, or were you able just to import what you had done previously?
Import previously, and again, John was probably more on that himself, maybe touching some of it. I'm not really sure, but so I allowed him to do what he does best, and it worked out. Seems like it. And I was also messing around about how many pages and stuff, because at the end, here we go again. I was changing my mind and adding more strips, and adding 20 more strips. And I finally thought, let's just do this book and then pick it up again this fall, because I'm already starting to put some together for the other one.
And then just last question on the color aspect, and I'll turn it back to Pete. But the cover obviously is something new, I presume you designed for the book. What tools did you use to do that, and how did you come up with the design?
Well, Photoshop. I've had a variation of that floating around the IP of the strip for a while, and it was flopped. And I realized I wanted it to be more left, right in the imagery and stuff. So I went ahead and redrew the whole thing. And, I really wanted it to look vibrant and stuff and bold with this sloppy yard, the way I've designed it and everything, and have Norm front and center. So it turned out to look pretty good. I think I went very high res with it, obviously, because it's pretty clean looking. So
very clean.
They did a nice job. I think in some cases I'll see certain books are printed in certain places and stuff. They'll have different channels. I don't know if you guys experience that at all.
Well, I mean, the cover, I think we went black and white with the interior, and it's a little different ours. But the cover, I was really impressed by how well done the Amazon publishing is.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, I screwed up. The first cover I sent a low res accidentally, and when the proof came back, it was all grainy, and I was all upset with Amazon, and then I realized it was my goof, and then so I
had to go through several iterations of it, because I kept screwing around with some of the verbiage on the cover and all that. I mean, that stuff on the back of the cover, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm writing advertising copy, so to speak, or blurbs, it's just like doing a log line and all this kind of stuff. Everything's got to be just right. And there's a rhythm to it. And it was making me crazy. So again, here goes with the deadline. I said this particular day I was getting rid of it. That's it. It's gone. So if there's a typo, don't tell me. So
Fix that on the next book, which reminds me, you touched on this very briefly, but yeah, there's a lot of leftover material. Clearly, you left stuff out. You have subsequent stuff. So the second book is already underway.
Yeah, I'm already starting. Well, I haven't told John this, but but the thing is I already had stuff that I was collecting for this first book, and then I thought, okay, we'll leave it at whatever 235 pages and stuff. And so what I ended up doing is this first book is sort of what I would call, I don't want to use the terminology, but the cream of 2018, 2019. Okay. And then this next one will probably pick up on the cream of 20 and 21, which was certainly an interesting time period. And I didn't lean as heavily on the pandemic as I probably wanted to, because, it was a shock. I think we all kind of had to react, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I know we talked about that on a prior podcast, but you did quite a bit, as I recall. I mean, you definitely.
I did. Well, I did. I think there was stuff early on, and I don't know if some of this, I don't know if all of it will go in the book, but there was stuff where Jake was trying to get a mask business going very early on in the system, and I was not happy of the commercialization of masks, so I was working that into the strip. I'm not so sure I'll put that in there, simply because it's still something that's pretty contentious to me and to all of us, really, the whole issue of masks and everything. So I don't know if it'll end up in there, but there's a lot of other material in the heat of the moment that was very difficult to transition. I had a lot of stuff backed up, and then suddenly this,
Yeah.
And you wanted to react. And I can't imagine how it was like for, most of the guys out there, the ones that in print, there's in many cases a 6-month lag, and you want to say something, but you can't.
Yeah, I mean, being web first, definitely gives you an advantage there.
Somewhat, yeah. So there's plenty of material to pick from. So there's so many storylines, and I'm not really sure where to start with it. But he gets a new boss in 2020. There's a tiki party he goes to at his mom's and stuff with the cats in 21. So there's a lot of these story arcs that will end up in there. But it's a lot of fun picking. I'm sure you guys go through that. Your books are not chronological per se, are they? Or are they?
There's almost, we left out a few that didn't, age particularly well. We do rewrite and redraw some of them if we go back and say, this could be better. But it's essentially almost a complete collection of pet peeves from day one to the end between the two.
I will tell you, though, the one thing I would not want to get into is redrawing, because I look at something I drew. I'm sure you're this way, Pat. You look at something you drew yesterday, and it just, not to mention
my style is loose. I mean, I really wish, I'd like to get on with like things like Procreate and all that kind of stuff and standardize, right? But I love to draw these things on Bristol, and they come out, they're very loose. I'm kind of a doodly type of an artist, and no two norms come out the same, I guess is the way you put it. So.
I ink and Procreate, and I don't think it's the same. I think that, there's no difference between me drawing in Procreate and you drawing on Bristol. It's still a free.
I know some will use the same character literally.
They'll just cut and paste. Yeah, see, I don't do that. I'm drawing.
Yeah, so and I actually admire that, because it's an efficiency. Here we go back to the efficiency on the work, So I kind of battle with that sometimes and would love to do it. But at the end of the day, I'm probably, I hate to say it, probably too lazy to get on that just yet. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but I need a rig as well.
I would just on the efficiency point, not to get too astray. I will use a sketch that I've done of a character and copy and paste it. I'll still ink it fresh, but I feel like if it's the same character in the very similar pose, there's no need to reinvent the wheel on that. I'm still inking it fresh.
Oh, for sure. And it's basic. I tend to do that the old school way, but I think that's one of the things that I'd like to kind of adapt to, getting a rig. I'm going to probably get a Cintiq and start working that. So,
Yeah.
and load roughs up to the cloud or whatever, bring them in and start working them on there.
Switching a little bit gears on your work, some people who follow your strip may not realize that you also have a separate and amazing talent to do caricatures. And it's not just drawing caricatures that most people think of, but you use geometric shapes to create caricatures of all kinds of famous people. And it's unbelievable how you can get the look of somebody using just the half circle and the triangles and the rectangles. How do you do that?
Right, there's no, just
Way
to,
too tight.
yes, but just to reiterate and to accentuate what Dave said, how you look at these and there is no doubt who it is. You don't even spend 2 seconds saying, who did he do there?
Well, it's a reductive style. I call it reductive. And, I think you have to, it's basically you're paring away to the barest essence that you can get away with, right? And back in the day, and I mean really back in the day, we used to do caricatures the old traditional way, like you'd see at an amusement park and markers and all this kind of thing. And over the years, I did so many of those, and usually it's a lot of corporate stuff, but over the years, I kind of gravitated to this more computer type design Photoshop thing. And, it's interesting. Some of them can be hit or miss, and some of them can be absolutely dead on. But I'll tell you, just even with something as minimal as that, I'm still fiddling with it. A lot of times I'll get to the finish line of something and I'm like 90% done and I think, oh God, I don't like this. And then I just kill it. So there's plenty of designs you guys haven't seen that it never even, I don't even post.
Do you have, I'm not a caricaturist, I've dabbled, but I would not consider myself a caricaturist, but, from some learning I've done or some reading I've done, some people start with like the eyes or some people just shape the head first. Is there a go-to?
I go real macro. There's not any one thing that hits. Occasionally there's something that might grab my eye. And I say eye because I was thinking I had one of Michael Stipe I did a while back. And I started with the eyes. I remember specifically starting with the eyes with him for some reason. I did a Travolta. I did a thing from Pulp Fiction. And Travolta's always, in the Pulp Fiction scene, he's got the slick back hair and that really gnarly, weird looking stuff. And he came out awfully quick. I mean, some of them, I had an old Rick Ocasek and I reposted it recently and that thing came out, oh my God, it probably didn't take more than a half hour to an hour. It was just that quickly, but I was really thinking very, very abstractly and hoping everything fell where it was supposed to fall,
And this is Photoshop? You just create geometric shapes?
Yeah, I tend to, a lot of people that do that type of style probably work more in Illustrator so that the files aren't like, 50 terabytes or something. But I tend to build them up in Photoshop, multiple layers and all that. And they do tend to be pretty beefy files. So
have you thought about compiling those for a book?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've had it's really funny. I'll give you a story here. I did this Charlie Watts one last year when he passed away, right? And got a lot of good reaction to it. And I go over to Redbubble with it and suddenly get a cease and desist.
Really?
Right. Yeah. And I'm suddenly, they're telling me you can't do that and stuff. And there's Universal Music or somebody was sending a letter, but it was a letter, basically a boilerplate type of thing. And I think it was just in the heat of it, sort of don't do that. But I would get on there to all these sites and I saw like 555 million Charlie Watts everywhere. I was like, okay. So I probably will do a book of some kind of actually kind of considered like a square format, just the way these caricatures are. Maybe put them in a smaller size book, 7x7 or something like that. So yeah, to your question, definitely thinking about it for sure.
That's so interesting because I mean, like Dave said, you go to these conventions and events and you look on Etsy and Redbubble and these other sites and it's wall to wall, intellectual property that may or may not have originated with the creator.
Right.
And it's clearly a cottage industry.
I go on there. It doesn't matter. You just pick a celebrity and go over to any of all the self-publishing, whatever sites where you can make coffee mugs and all that kind of thing. And just type in a celebrity's name and 50 million things will come down. Yeah. So I don't know. I get the whole idea of rights of publicity and all that kind of stuff. So I will probably opt for more of a best of book type thing where there's not one central focus, on the character. It's more on the caricaturist or the caricature part,
And that's the other thing. I can understand photographs maybe, but an artistic interpretation of an individual
Right.
How about titling it "Caricatures of People Who Look Just Like Famous People"?
Use a different name or whatever. You know, I see a lot on fan pages out there, whether it's Pete and you're like Springsteen or Beatles or whatever, and I'll see people that will take really classic. This is sort of here's a pun here. This is a pet peeve of mine. But I'll see like not caricatures, but I'll see somebody take like, say, an Ethan Russell photo of the Beatles. And then they'll go into Photoshop and do some type of filter and semi-paint the thing. And it's the exact same thing, but it's just done in a different media. And then everybody's kind of going, oh, that's but it's Ethan Russell's work, So I don't really get that.
I blame Warhol.
There you go. That's true. Yeah, pop art took care of all that. Yeah. Andy, good old Andy. Yeah.
So one thing we must remember to ask you, we're running out of time, but we touched on the fact that you went with Amazon with this book. So is that the best bet for people who want to find the Next Door Neighbors book, or would you rather they look on one of your social accounts? What's the best way to find it?
I would say if you go over to do direct message me over at Instagram, JP Sandy, and definitely would love to do a signed book and send it out that way. So, but Amazon, if for those who want that to show up real quick and get it real quick, I think Amazon is a great option as well.
All right. Well, we will have all of those options listed on our website, petpeevescomic.com, along with some samples of your fine work and links to where everybody can find that and find the book. Pat, anything else before we go? Anything else on your horizon that we should be talking about?
I think that's pretty. Well, I'm going to be playing a lot of music over the summer. The band's going to be going out and doing a lot of
great in-person music. Missed the in-person music.
It keeps me off the streets at night. So
you've got any gigs in Boston that we can catch?
Would love to. Oh my God, love to go up there and play. Yeah, I got to come up there anyway. It seems like all the Comic Cons are up in your neck of the woods, so
Well, Dave plans a Cartoonist Society lunch once a month or so that is very well attended, and they would love to have you as a special guest. I
do like a little road trip or something,
Once we get back to restaurants, it's in a couple of years, but yeah.
It's been a long couple of years, definitely.
Yeah.
But we're almost there. I think we're almost
there. It seems like it for sure, yeah. But definitely, I love coming back and seeing you guys. I think it's nice that I managed to get a book in the same year you got a book out, or at least close to within it, So
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. Are you planning another one?
We nothing official, but Pete and I think have just sort of assumed at this point that the compilations will keep going, just because we're doing it chronological. So there's very little, and Pete really is sort of the one who may pull some strips that don't work so much. But I think, at least 90% of the material is getting in there from.
Oh, that's outstanding. Yeah.
Right. And what we'll do is we don't do complete redraws, but we'll say, oh, you know what? Maybe he should be angry in this panel rather than confused, and Dave will redraw the eyes, or the eyebrows.
Oh yeah,
that's the benefit of having the electronic file saved, because it takes 5 seconds to do something like that.
Oh my God, yeah. So and those kind of conversations I end up having with myself, so that's kind of not pretty to. I'm talking to the wall or something,
And if Dave ever gets too far behind, I write a series where there's a blackout and he just draws the eyeballs.
The eyes. Those are my favorite.
That's a good idea. It really is.
I
like that. Yeah, definitely.
All right,
Thank you so much for having me on, gentlemen.
Oh, it was our pleasure. Our pleasure as always. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you everybody else for listening in. We always love having you here at Strip Search, the Comic Strip Podcast. Please visit us at petpeevescomic.com for our old shows, our samples to our guest work, and all that other fun stuff we were talking to you about. And we'll see you next month with another episode. Bye, everybody.
Standing. See you guys.